Hello guys, welcome to my channel. So I have started this just to revise my parasitology classes along with you, so I thought it will benefit a few people like me. So, what exactly is parasitology? Parasitology refers to the study of parasites and of course parasitism. So, what is parasitism? Parasitism is an association between two species in which one species will be the parasite and it lives on the second species called the host, and it will be for a particular time, a period of time, and it will make use of the host in the ways it needs. So we can see the different types of symbiotic associations here. First one is phoresis, which means to carry. So it literally means the parasite is being held on to the host, and it's a type of mechanical carrying. And the next one is commensalism. All right, so commensalism refers to the type of association in which one organism benefits without affecting the other. So the other one is neither harmed nor benefited, as in the case of the whale and the barnacle. The whale is simply carrying it and it's not getting affected or benefited, whereas the barnacle gets the benefits. The next one is called mutualism, the one where both of the parties get some sort of benefits and one cannot survive without the other, as in the case of the bee and the flowers which it pollinates. And then comes our topic, parasitism. Parasitism, as I told, is one in which one partner gets harmed while the other gets the benefit. So that is all about the types of symbiotic relationships. Now let's next talk about the types of parasites. Based on the amount of time it is present within the host, we can call it as temporary, where it remains on the host body for from time to time for food, like in the case of mosquitoes. Next is permanent. As the name suggests, it remains on the body of the host for its entire life. For example, lice. Then comes periodic. It leaves the host to complete the development. Alright? So it will be there in a particular frame of time, but in order to finish its development, it will go to another host or another environment. Next comes stationary, where the parasite spends a definite period of the time in or on the host. So most of the parasites are known to be stationary. Then comes accidental host, which will appear in unusual accidental parasites, which will be found in unusual hosts. So it is not supposed to be there. Somehow it got there. Next comes aberrant or erratic parasite, which is seen in unusual locations within the host. So it is meant to be in this host, but not there, but not in the place where it is supposed to be there. Next comes facultative parasite, which can exist either as a parasite or as a free living organism. So it just has to choose. And depending on the location within the host, it can be either endoparasite or an ectoparasite. Endoparasite, as the name suggests, the organism will live inside the body of the host. For example, Plasmodium, which is known to spread malaria. Then ectoparasite lives on the outer surface of another organism. So it's an externally located parasite on the surface of the host. For example, ticks or lice. Now, next, based on the situation of the parasite, that is, whether it can survive with a host or without a host, we can divide it into three types: obligatory, opportunistic, and pseudoparasite. So obligatory parasite means I cannot live without you. It's in such a way, all right? So it cannot live without a host, all right? Or it is completely adapted for that particular sort of existence within the host. Opportunistic means it can produce a disease only in immunodeficient or immunosuppressed patients, all right? So it's more of like it's not harmful if the body's immune system is okay, but once it sees that it's time, it just automatically transfers into a very, I'm not saying harmful, but we can see certain symptoms which were not there before. Then comes pseudoparasite or coprozoic parasite, which is a foreign organism which have been swallowed, alright? It merely passes through the alimentary canal. It's just here as a tourist, alright? And we can recover it from feces, alright? And that's it. Now we talked about all the parasites, all the types of parasites based on different criteria. Now let's talk about the host. So as I told before, the host is the one who's getting the negative influence because of the parasite which is living inside or on the surface of it, and we can classify them into either a definite host, an intermediate host, a paratenic host, a vector, a biological vector, or a mechanical vector. So definitive host means it's a host in which the parasite will reach its sexual maturity and undergoes reproduction. So it finishes its reproductive cycle within that particular host. In the case of intermediate host, it's the host in which the parasite will undergo the larval development but does not reach sexual maturity. So it will be a form of transport for the larval stage into the definite host most of the time. Then comes paratenic host or transport host. So as the name suggests, it's the host in which a parasite survives, but there is no particular development going around, and it will just accumulate different stages, accumulates or maintains, alright, the stage of the parasite. And it's really not essential for the life cycle, but it will help the parasite to get on to the next host or next essential host. Then comes a vector. So a vector is any agent, let it be a living agent or a non-living agent, a biotic or biotic agent like the wind, water, or any sort of insect that transmits an infectious organism. Biological vector refers to a vector in which the parasite lives or develops, and the parasite will undergo morphological change and / or multiplication, and in this case the vector is usually essential for the parasite to finish its life cycle. And the best example will be the mosquito for a plasmodium larva, alright. Next one is a mechanical vector, which just transmit the parasite by mechanical means only. It can be a living or a non-living type, and it's not essential for the parasite's life cycle. So when it's a biological vector, most of the time we see that it's essential, whereas in the case of a mechanical vector, we don't usually see it. So that's all about hosts and parasites. Now let's talk about life cycles. So what is a life cycle? It refers to the entire set of stages in the life of a parasite, starting from the adults, and it will take one complete cycle under the next set of adults, alright, so the next generation. Now we have two types of life cycles. One is the direct life cycle, where the parasite is transferred from one host to the other of the same species. For example, cat to cat or dog to dog, whatever it is. And the main thing is that we do not see any intermediate host in here, alright. So that is the main thing about direct life cycle. Next comes indirect life cycle, and the main thing is they always have an intermediate host. So that means it's not really transferred between the same species, but rather it takes a different route through another species, which in turn will transfer it to the definite host. And some parasites have both a direct and an indirect life cycle, and these include hookworms or such particular worms. And some parasites may be species specific, so it will affect only one particular species, not the entire set. Now next we'll talk about parasite transmission. How can a parasite be transmitted? So They can either transfer passively or actively, or inoculative transmission is also possible. So a passive transmission means the parasite does not have to travel to the host, okay? It does not have to take the effort to travel from one host to the other or to the host. It's usually ingested. So ingested in the sense we might not be eating the parasite per se, we might be eating the eggs, all right, which can be found in the environment, or maybe in the case of ruminants it can be seen on the grass. So whatever it is, we actually consume it without knowing it. So that is what is meant by passive transmission. Next comes active transmission. So when the parasite travels to the host, or maybe it has the ability to penetrate into the host, we call it as active transmission. All right. So the mosquito with the Plasmodium larva is an example for that. Next comes inoculative transmission. Inoculative transmission, the intermediate host, which we often call IH, okay, it will inject the parasite into the definitive host. So, well, I think this is actually the best example. The best example for this would be the mosquitoes, all right. So, the mosquito is actually seen to inject the parasites into the definitive host, which most probably are mammals and humans in particular. And in this case, the intermediate host is called the vector, and it often takes blood from the definite host, all right. So that is what is meant by transmission. Next, we will talk about the mode of parasitic infections, all right. So I haven't written it down here, I suppose. Let me just see. No, I haven't. So mode of parasitic transmissions. It can be either consumed by ingestion, as we often observe, all right, they are mostly consumed by the host, or it can be by direct contact through the skin or sexually. So direct contact, that's another thing. It can be congenital, so from the mother to the fetus. It can happen via inhalation. So the dust will carry in the infective stages of the parasite. It can happen via vectors that we just mentioned before, like through the bite, or maybe they will bite in and inject the parasite into the body. It can happen through auto-infection. That means some infective stages will be carried from the feces to the mouth of the patient. So there will be the transfer does not happen between two organisms, rather it happens within the carrier itself, So the organism, the parasite will complete its cycle once, but then again proceeds to infect the same individual. Okay, that's all. Then the next important thing will be adaptations to parasitism. So there are morphological adaptations, then life cycle wise we can see that, and immunological adaptations. So morphological adaptations, I am pretty sure all of us know a few of the morphological adaptations, which will be attachment organs like hooks and suckers. Then their size, their shape, everything will be adapted to the particular organ and the organism in which they are intending to live within. Then their reduction in the CNS and the sensory organs, as you know already, all these hookworms or the ascarids, the nematodes, they do not have a profound central nervous system, right? And we know that fasciola is the one where we see some sort of network for the first time. So I'm sorry, not fasciola, platyhelminthes. And so they do not have any developed CNS and sensory organs, rather it's reduced. Then their gut is reduced and they absorb the nutrients through the entire body surface. So they take in the food, the nutrients through their entire body, which is kind of absorptive. Then in the case of endoparasites, they are seen to have the cuticles, all right, which will, so in cases where they have a cuticle, we cannot see the absorption of the nutrients through the entire body surface, all right. So these are meant to protect the parasites from all the acids or the alkaline conditions or whatever it is there within the body. So that's all about the morphological adaptations. Then comes life cycle adaptation. So it depends on the hosts which are going to be attacked, whether they need an intermediate host to finish their larval cycles or whatever. We'll talk about it in the further classes. Then comes immunological adaptation. So that depends on the host in which they are living with it, living inside, living, and so they will these includes the absorption of the host antigen or molecular mimicry or the loss or masking of surface antigen so that they are not discovered. Then disruption of the host immune response, that is the main thing that they'll focus upon. And well, that's all right. So these are the adaptations, and all of these things are the ones that you need to know when you're starting your parasitology classes. I know this wasn't much, but I'm sure this is a good beginning, not just for you guys, for me as well, to revise my portions before my exam. So hold on tight, I'm pretty sure we'll reach there in no time. And thank you so much for listening to me. Have a wonderful day. Bye.